Hello, I'm Neil and I'm standing outside the entrance of the Lady Victoria Colliery in Newton Grange, just outside Edinburgh. This is the only... As you can probably see, the weather outside was terrible that day, so I brought the film inside. My film is about the collieries in the south of Edinburgh and Midlothian. I was filming inside and outside the Lady Victoria Colliery in Newton Grange, which is now the Scottish Mining Museum, the last colliery still intact in Scotland. The areas I was covering were mining villages such as Dalkeith, Lonehead, Rosewell, Arniston, Gilmerton, Newton Grange and Bilston. The Lady Vic in Newton Grange was opened in 1894 and worked right through to its closure in 1981, when most of the miners moved on to the new super pits, Monkton Hall and Bilston Glen. The Lady Vic had a shaft of 1,600 feet where 40 million tonnes of coal were brought up by the largest mining engine in Scotland. The museum was opened in 1984 on the site of the former colliery. Other pits were not so lucky. The last of the pits in the area to close was Monkton Hall, which ceased to operate in 1987, only to open again for 2 years, when the miners who worked there applied the redundancy money back in to keep the pit afloat before it was finally closed in 1989 and mothballed. One of the bitterest examples of the political call of the industry came in Bilston Glen, but the strike and the violence that came with it finally hit Midlothian. The pit had produced 1 million tonnes of coal and had employed 2,300 men up until its closure. Many of the men who worked at the pit had come from the smaller pits and also the mothballed Monkton Hall and Lady Victoria. The ill feeling amongst the communities, miners and families against the government and the police, as well as those who chose to fight against the strike, spilled over to Bilston Glen with violence, arrests and a general ill feeling. Much of the miners who came from other pits such as Orgreave and Durham came in solidarity with the miners at Bilston Glen to stand on the picket lines and face up to police and government. The legacy of this one great industry is small as far as visual goes, with much of the sites now housing industrial parks, retail sites, housing or simply waste ground. It's a sad indictment for an industry which once brought communities together and provided work for thousands of young men and a safe environment amongst their own communities. The museum now caters for groups of school children eager to learn what the industry was like to work in, as well as generations moved on from those who were the last ones to work in the mine, as well as ex-miners still looking to get the feel of the old place. It has 2 exhibitions in it. It also has a large machines exhibition where much of the machines were used in that pit and were donated by other collieries. It's definitely worth a visit and you get the feel of the place as you walk in through the door. It looks much the same as it did on the day it was opened, with the exception of 1 or 2 buildings, and it is a fine example of what was a fabulous industry before it was so cruelly taken away by a government intent on crushing the working man. Many other industries suffered as a result of the death of the collieries, and many industries have not been replaced. People find it hard to get jobs nowadays, whereas before it was a simple case of leaving school and walking into such a place. It's an industry that fascinates me. The museum was worth a look to take a look back at the history of working men in the area and the legacy of the death of the pits. One man I spoke to at the museum is a tour guide who also worked in the pit and many of the others in the surrounding area. His name is John Anderson.
My name is John Anderson and I've been at the Mining Museum for 7 years now. When I retired for the water board, I got a job in here, and at first I wasn't really sure about taking the job because I didn't talk much to people then, but I came out and got a trial and I said I would do it, and I've been here for 7 years now, as I say, and I've enjoyed it.
Really? Where did you work before when you were a miner? What colliery did you work?
Well, when I left the school, I started at Anderson, just up the road here. It was called the Gold Mine, and I was there for 3 years. And then I moved to Dalkeith, where I stayed, to the pit down there, which is called Dalkeith Colliery, because there is neither no travelling so far. In the 80s you could move from pit to pit, without any problems. And then I was in Dalkeith Colliery till 78, and then they closed that and we landed up at we were at Mung till 1987. That's when that closed. Except for the boys that put their money in it, so it went for another 2 years before it closed up again. Well,
if you have other industries, for instance, that rely on coal or rely on the coal industry for jobs such as steelworks, power stations, things like that. How does it compare now if you look at what jobs there is in areas like here in Belston and Dalkeith and stuff? I mean, is there the same kind of chance of getting a job? Is there something there now for, has it ever been replaced?
a lot of businesses went through the business and you always, well, I came myself, I say myself, what does everybody do now? No steelworks, no big industries at all. So what does everybody work at? Are they on computers or what? I mean, you're doing something good, you let them know what they used to do when they were